Hey, Temple family, so glad we've made space to connect in this way during this different kind of time together. I want to dive right into our thought for today. And what I really want to do, I just haven't been able to shake this all week. One of my favorite verses has just been spinning in my heart for us to talk about together. We're just going to walk through really one verse together. It's Psalm 91, verse number 1. And what I really want to encourage you to do is those of you who are doing maybe a different kind of time with the Lord during this season, I'd encourage you to take this whole week and walk through Psalm 91 each day. Each day, let God unpack something else fresh from this amazing song. But for this morning, we're really going to focus mostly just on the first verse. Psalm 91, verse 1, and I'm going to look at the New Living Translation this morning. That's what I encourage you to grab. And it's such an accurate and beautiful picture of what I think God's heart is for us and what God's heart is for you today. Verse number 1 says this: "Those who live in the shelter of the Most High will find rest in the shadow of the Almighty." Those who live in the shelter of the Most High. I love how that's phrased. Because the fact is, we're all being told right now to stay at home. Stay where you live. Go home. Now, for many of you who are watching, you're still going to work in a limited basis or maybe in an amended basis. And for all of our medical care friends, listen, y'all are on the front lines of this thing. And for our first responders, you guys are still going to work. But many of us are being asked, when possible, as much as possible, to stay home. And by the way, let me just pause for a second and say, please take that counsel for the time being. We want to see this plan work so that we can get back together soon. And for the sake of our medical friends and first responders, we do want you to stay home. But here's the question. Where truly is our home? I mean, where do we really live? And what we're finding right now is we spend a lot of time in a lot of places. Especially our extroverts right now are figuring out we're used to being on the go, right? But those aren't the places where we live. Those are the places that we visit, right? Maybe we like to go spend time at our favorite coffee shop or our favorite restaurant or at the theater or at the mall or at our favorite place to go shopping. But that's not where we live, right? Right now, we're being reminded about where home really is. And for all the kids watching, this reminds me of a really brilliant man who once said this about home.
Yup, home is where your rump rests.
Man, that's just good stuff, right? Like that's the most philosophically smart thing I have to offer to our kids today, right? That's just good stuff. And here's the thing. Home is where we really put our roots down. It's where we really find our being. And the fact is this, if we confuse where we live with where we visit, we're going to feel really lost right now. What I would submit to you is we do need to stay home. But by home, I mean, let's go deeper in the presence of God during this season. Let's let our home really be the shelter of the Most High. Let's let our home, our place of dwelling, be the presence of God. That's where we're going to find hope today. That's where we're going to find perspective today, is to go deeper right now in where we really live, where our home is really found, which is the presence of the Most High God. The phrasing here says that those who live in the shelter of the Most High. Some of the local powers that be are telling people to shelter in place. That's a phrase we've been hearing some, right? What a beautiful, beautiful phrase that we have a shelter in the presence of God. That we have a place where we feel secure. But that word shelters is translated in some other translations as the secret place. The idea of a shelter is we're withdrawing to a place that isn't quite as public. And goodness, isn't that what we're all feeling right now? Is we're feeling very withdrawn from the public eye. But I think for us today, that's a beautiful thing. That's a wonderful thing. That we would invest in the secret place, in the inner life, in our spiritual walk. Not in how people view us and what people think of us and whether we have the perfect image, but on the real stuff, the stuff on the inside, right? And I shared with you guys a year ago this month, one of the men that I call my pastor, Tom Messer, was here leading our parent workshop. And one of the phrases he said that has stuck with me for the last year is, he asked this question: are we cultivating an inner life that can bear the weight of our outer life? We're in a day of building up these bigger than life exterior visions of ourselves, versions of ourselves. But are we building up an inner life, a spiritual life, that can bear the weight of all that? This season right now helps us answer that question. And it gives us, for some of us, forced margin to be able to develop that, to grow deeper in the inner life, in our spiritual walk, in the secret place, the shelter. So we're finding our home in the shelter, and I love this next couple words, of the Most High. One of the phrases I keep hearing again and again and again, multiple times a day, is, and when they're talking about these decisions being made, they keep using the phrase, the high-ranking officials are saying. High-ranking officials, like there's this March Madness kind of rank thing going on of who's the most in charge around here. But you know what? Above all of those high-ranking officials, there's the Most High God, who right now isn't shaken, he isn't scared, he isn't removed, he isn't caught off guard. He is present, he is for you, he's at work, he has a plan, and he is still good. He is still on the throne. He is the Most High God. He's the one we trust right now, he's the one we look to right now, and he is the place that we truly find our home right now. We live in the shelter of the Most High. And when we do, we see the rest of the verse says that we will find rest. Even in the midst of the unknown, even as some of our temple family have already lost their jobs. I just got off the phone with another family who's already lost their job. We're looking this thing square in the eye and seeing it for what it is. And we think in the midst of that, rest can still be found. We think we can still find rest, not in our circumstances, but in the goodness of our God, in the faithfulness of the Most High. We can find rest in the shadow of the Almighty. I just encourage you, we're not looking to find our hope in our external circumstances right now. We're looking to find rest. And we're finding rest, look at what the rest of the verse says, in the shadow of the Almighty. Man, I love that language about the shadow. Whew, that's so good to me. Because a shadow can't exist unless there's a light source. And the brighter the light, the more defined the shadow is. And we believe that the light of the world is still shining on you today. We believe he is still shining a light of grace and hope over you and your family and your household. We've been sharing with you every day a verse of the day and an activity to do as a family around the Word of God. And we've been sharing a song of the day. And the first song that we shared last week, and it's part of our recommended worship set again today, is a song called The Blessing that's kind of gone viral. And I believe it's prophetic that this song was written just a week before all of this began. And the song comes straight out of the scripture, straight out of Numbers chapter 16. The Lord bless you and the Lord keep you. The Lord make his face to shine upon you and be gracious to you. Man, and I just believe that the face of God is towards you. We're praying that over you and over your families right now. Our faces can't currently shine towards you, towards one another, right? But we believe the face of the Almighty is turned your direction. And when his face is shining our direction, that is a shadow where we can find rest. That is a shadow where hope still lives. That's a shadow that's unshakable. Some of you traveled with us to Kosovo a couple years ago, and we met a gentleman named Asat. And I've had the privilege of hearing Asat's testimony a couple times. Asat was the first man that he knew of in his city that gave his life to Jesus many years ago, during a real difficult time for his people. As a matter of fact, during the Bosnian conflict, he had fled and met up with his family in a refugee camp in Albania. While he was there, he went to a home that had a red door, because he was told there were some Americans there who would give his family some food. And because they were starving, he humbled himself and went to this red door. And the first time I heard him tell this testimony, he said this. He said, the people who opened the door gave me bread for my family, but what I saw was light in their face. Those are the words he used. I saw light in their face. And Assad didn't give his life to Jesus that day. He didn't choose to become a follower of Jesus that day. Actually, it was quite a while before he did, but he said he couldn't shake. He couldn't get over the light that he saw in their face. And here's the deal, y'all. It wasn't actually light he saw in their face. It was shadow. What he saw in the midst of turmoil and a difficult time for his people is he looked on the face of some people who knew where home really was. That their home wasn't the building with the red door. Their home was the shelter of the Most High. And they were finding their rest in the shadow of the Almighty God. And for those of us who are still going to work, and for those of us who are trying to lead well in our homes right now for the sake of our kiddos, here's what I believe. They need to see some shadow. They need to see spill over from us that we are abiding deeply and richly in Jesus Christ right now. And that what they sense in us is the hope that only comes from knowing that our home is in the presence of God. And what he offers in that is unshakable hope. Let me share one more verse, the very next verse. Verse number 2 says, "This I declare about the Lord. He alone is my refuge, my place of safety. He is my God, and I will trust him." And what a powerful statement about God. And when we know that we trust him, when we know that he's our dwelling place, you would almost think, well, then that means everything's going to go perfect, right? But as I encourage you to read the rest of this song over the coming week, what we see is the song is real honest about the fact that there's difficult things. As a matter of fact, it talks about there being night terrors and arrows that fly by the day. It talks about disease. And so this psalm is honest about the fact that life is still not the way we want it to necessarily be. But we find the promise near the end of the song that in the midst of those difficult times, those people who know where they live, who know where home really is, he says this in verse 15, "When they call on me, I will answer. I will be with them in trouble." Now, we want him to take us out of the trouble. He doesn't always choose to do that. Sometimes he just says, no, I'll be with you in the trouble. But ultimately he says this, "I will rescue you, and I will rescue them and honor them." What a beautiful hope and a beautiful promise we have when we know our dwelling place, our home, is in the presence of God. I believe that presence is with each of us right now in this very moment. The fact is, we're not nearly as disconnected as we might feel right now. You know what the uniting factor is? It's the same God. He's with us, and he's present. That's where our home is found. With that thought, I want to share a story with you about a young lady named Astrid. Here's a picture of Astrid from about 4 years ago. This picture was taken the very first day that she showed up at our orphanage, our Manna orphanage in Guatemala. Some of you have actually met Astrid. You might not recognize her from this picture, but she came to that Manna orphanage that many of you have visited. Many of you have hung out in that orphanage. As a matter of fact, some of us helped do construction and dig the footers for that very building that would eventually become a home to Astrid and many other young people. Astrid was brought to the Manna orphanage by some police officers who had caught her on that day where you saw her in that picture. She had been pickpocketing. She was stealing. She was stealing to survive because she didn't have a home. She had left home because her stepfather was abusing her, and her mother didn't do anything to protect her. And so she fled for safety. She left home and didn't have a home. But because of generous supporters like you and many other believers around the world, the Manna orphanage has been raised up by God to give a home to kids who don't have a home. And so she found a home at Manna. And having a family that loved her and loves Jesus has changed her life. She's been healed of that withdrawn personality that you saw in that picture, and she's found hope. She's found a personal relationship with Jesus Christ that's changed her life. And it's changed her life not just on the inside, not just in the secret place, but when we're truly finding life on the inside, it transforms the outside too. As a matter of fact, look at this picture of her that was taken just recently. This picture was taken at her quinceañera recently, where our missionary, Chuck Ward, was in attendance. And Chuck watched her at her quinceañera give away gifts to many people. The first gift she gave away was to her mother, who hadn't kept her safe. The second gift she gave away was to her stepfather, who had abused her. And what she told him is, I want you to know I forgive you, because Jesus has changed my life, and I choose to not hang on to unforgiveness and resentment towards you. I want you to see the love of Jesus. And she gave out several more gifts, but the final gift she gave that day, she gave to Jesus. She offered a gift publicly to the Lord. Astrid has learned sign language. She serves in her church because she found out there were some people that can't hear, and they couldn't hear about the love of Jesus. And so she started learning sign language because she wanted people to know. How does that happen? How does a thief become a good gift giver? Here's how. She got a new home. Ultimately, that home wasn't just a manna orphanage. It was a home in the presence of a loving God, the same God who is with you and is for you. If during this unknown season you've begun to question, I don't know for sure where I am in my relationship with Jesus, beneath this video, whatever venue you're watching it, beneath this video, the link, the first link you will see, is a form that you can fill out that says, hey, I just want to have a conversation with somebody. I need to talk. We can do that over the phone. We can do that over a video conference. If you're comfortable, we can meet somewhere and find a safe way to do that, because we want to have a conversation with you about how you can know for sure that your home is secure, that your home is settled. So please let us know if there's a way that we can have that conversation with you. If you know for sure you have a relationship with Jesus, then let's take this odd time to go deeper in the dwelling place, to go deeper in our relationship with God. There's another link beneath that gives families an opportunity to worship together today, and we'll continue to offer those throughout the week, but you can watch a little video together with a brief lesson so that our kiddos can be engaged with something that's a little more on their level. We'll continue to do daily updates with a scripture of the day and with a song for the day and with an opportunity for families to engage about spiritual things together. There's also a form beneath that, a link to a form where you can let us know if there's something specific that you need. If you don't know how to let us know that form is the way you can communicate, hey, here's something I really need. We'll go do grocery shopping for you. If you're at risk, man, let us come alongside and help you out. And the second part of that form is a way that we can share goods with one another, the way that the early church did in the book of Acts. If you got a whole bunch of hand sanitizer and you want to make that available to some of our elderly who can't get out or whatever, there's a way for you to communicate that. The third part of that form is just a space where you can share any prayer needs you have right now. If there's a way that we can pray with you, if you're one of the families who's lost their job or your hours are being dramatically limited during this time, let us pray for you. Let us know so that we can come alongside you and pray for you, because we want to come alongside you in that way. The link beneath that is a link to be able to continue to be faithful to give as the Lord does provide for us. Please continue to do so that we can continue to meet these needs, so that we continue to be obedient to the Lord with our tithes and our offerings. We'd ask that you continue that. There's also a link with some songs today so that music can continue to be a part of your worship experience as you're gathered together there in your home. We want you to know that we love you. We're for you. We can't wait till things get back together, until we get back together and things get back to normal. In the meantime, we're here. We love you. We will see you soon.